Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. We have Patty Hajdu coming up. She is one of the more repulsive ministers from Carney's cabinet of conspiracy and carnage. But she's going to be here on CBC. At least we don't have David Cochrane. We've got some other Phil Seat, fake hack reporter sitting in the chair. Let's see how this goes. They're just going to lie to you. Guaranteed. That's all they do on CBC, and with especially the Liberal ministers. They just try to deceive you. Let's take a look at how they're going to try to pull that off tonight. Don't let them fool you.
Hey, that's something everyone can enjoy.
Canada is bracing for another economic attack from U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump said this week he's raising tariffs on Canada by an additional 10%, but still hasn't said when or how he'll do that. In light of all the uncertainty, the Carney government once again turned to its plan for the home front.
But here's the good news. We can do more for ourselves than any other nation can take away. We're going to focus on what we can control, building on our strength here at home. We're going to build big, build bold, and build now, shovels in the ground.
Among the pre-budget announcements today are $75 million for union apprenticeship training to boost workers in trades, $97 million for speeding up the recognition of workers' foreign credentials, a $1.5 billion tax credit for personal support workers in most provinces of up to $1,100. A lot of that money comes from a previous Liberal fund, but $304 million of it is brand new spending. Patty Hajdu is the Minister of Jobs and Families. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here.
I want to get to today's announcement, but sort of overlaying it as the news of the weekend, Trump saying he's going to raise tariffs another 10%. We don't know when or if CUSMA trade is going to be exempt to that. What further supports need to be put in place for Canadian workers and Canadian industry as we navigate this latest obstacle on the trade road?
Well, that's the work that we've been doing over the last several months, both preparing the workforce for any unanticipated shock, any kind of change in the labor market, specific sectors that are hard hit, making sure there's flexibility in the EI system to both keep workers attached through work sharing, but also make sure workers can get training while they're on the job. And obviously the investments in major projects in Build Canada Homes are a huge piece to trying to stimulate Canadian economy and build the things that we need to trade with other partners.
I think the frustration, and I've heard it this morning, right? I'm always reaching out to businesses across the country, to workers, to workers associations, business associations, and there's a concern that Trump's saying it's going to be, quote, a long time before he meets Carney. Carney's saying, Canada stands ready, but no real movement on either side. Is there a plan to get back to the table beyond just waiting?
Well, look, I think two things can be true. We are working diligently on trying to get a new deal with the United States to make sure that we can actually move forward with trading with the United States. But I think the entire world knows this is an uncertain time for trade, and global trade has been upended. We're not the only country to be living through a variety of different tariff measures. The challenge is that we are one of the largest trading partners with the United States. And so while we're doing that work to stabilize that relationship, the Prime Minister is also not waiting. He is forging new relationships. So he's today, as you know, at APEC, he is meeting with other Asian country leaders to both promote Canadian goods and services and people, sell the products that Canada actually produces, and ensure that we have options for diversification of trade.
Given the way this all blew up over the weekend on Friday, do you think it was a mistake for Ontario to run that ad?
Well, look, I think that
Yes.
these are uncertain times, and I think that this negotiation continues to be complex, and I think there are a number of different realities about the negotiation that have happened over the last number of months. What the Prime Minister and my colleagues are focused on is maintaining that steady leadership, that steady commitment to being at the table, to talking through those tough issues, to looking for a path forward with the United States.
But none of those.
But also diversifying the options out there. And I think that's the reality, and Canadians know that. Look, when I go to the grocery store, or I'm out in my community, what people want is they want Canadian calm, cool, collective action. And that doesn't necessarily mean just with the United States. That, Canadians know that this is a hinge moment and that we need to do things differently.
I want to get into the announcement that you made today. There's a Deloitte report from like a month ago saying that Canada needs 500,000 more tradespeople by 2030 to meet the government's housing and major projects goal. How many will your announcement today actually bring into the trade?
I don't have that number at the top of my at the tip of my fingers, so to speak. But what I can say is that we know that the building trades unions are some of the best trainers out there, and they are also good at attracting people to the trades. And this additional investment will allow them to accelerate that work. Getting through the process of being an apprentice and finishing with your red seal is actually arduous. And what we need is the supports in place, both on the individual basis, but also on the sort of workforce basis to make sure that we get someone through that pipeline. And building trades unions are very good at that. They know how to take a person with ambition and bring them through all of those training modules and the skills training and the work placements that actually result in the attachment to the workforce.
Part of this, though, is going to have to be immigration. Part of your announcement today is about respecting foreign credentials, but we've turned off the taps on immigration. How can you sort of have those two things working against each other and accomplish some of these goals?
Well, the foreign credential program isn't about newcomers that are coming tomorrow. It's about people that are here today. So, people that arrive in Canada, often well-skilled, they have credentials in other countries. Different provinces have different rules about how to recognize those credentials, how fast, how slow. The idea is that we've done a lot on the individual basis. People can get loans and grants. They're obviously repayable in the majority of cases, and there's a great return on investment, but it's not fast enough. And what we know is that in places like my region, Northern Ontario, if you have someone that's come over that's a physiotherapist or a respiratory technologist, and they're driving a cab or delivering Uber Eats, that is a huge waste of opportunity. And so our intention by this investment is to leverage those investments with the provinces and territories, support them to work with colleges. All of these professions are regulated, and see if we can't get to a speedier way to recognize these credentials.
Here's one of the concerns I've heard this morning, is that people say, what we need here is dramatic change. The swing for the fences kind of talk that the Prime Minister had last week, and that, an $1,100 tax credit for personal support workers, just like, these are important measures, but they're not the kind that are really going to break through the logjam and get things done.
It's not the whole budget. Listen,
right.
It's a pre-announcement. And so we're talking today about some of the specific supports for workers. I was just with SEIU, personal support workers, actually a critical hinge to the economy. If you can't get good care for your aging parent, you actually can't fully participate in the economy.
100%.
This is something that support workers have been asking for a very long time. It was a pleasure to be able to deliver this after years of advocacy. But it's also practical. It's about making sure that job is seen as a quality job where you can make a living and you're going to stay in that sector, because we need those folks so that everyone else can actually get out and reach their full potential, increase their productivity. But the full announcement of the budget is coming November 4th, and there'll be way more in it.
A piece of this is also making sure that we have better standardization of regulations across provinces. As you well know, 60% of trade amongst the provinces is done in services, and that's a huge problem. How we hear a lot about the different sort of programs. When I talk to people about what needs to get done, that one keeps coming up. The standardization and regulation of how people are employed and regulated in their workplace across provinces. What do we need to do to get that fixed?
So that is, we've been working on that, luckily. Federal labor ministers, provincial labor ministers have come together to say what are those barriers to having more of a standardization. And this can happen in all sorts of different spaces. Safety is one of them. Obviously, no one wants to see a race to the bottom of safety standards. So we know that we can do better. And the labor ministers have all made a commitment to work with their regulatory bodies and to do that much more quickly. But there's no question about it. it's a real productivity drag if someone moves from Alberta and wants to go and take a job in Ontario and has to get recertified for falls arrest training. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to sort out with provinces and territories. We all agree we need to do it. I think everybody wants to make sure we do it in a way that doesn't in any way undermine why those regulations exist.
It's also in legal, it's in consulting, it's in securities. Like it's really embedded in the economy, I guess is the point I'm getting at.
Well, I know the trade space the best because I am the federal labor minister and jobs minister. But I would say that harmonization across that's why we passed the One Canadian Economy Act, because we believe that harmonization, whether it's trade between provinces, whether it's the movement of people and labor, that is critically important to getting through this time together.
Really quick before you go, do you have any progress to report to us about the Canada Post situation and where we can expect to see some resolution of that?
What's up there?
Well, look, I think that both parties need to be very focused on what they need to do to get a deal. Obviously, this is a time of modernization for a lot of different sectors, and Canada Post is no different. And as you know, my colleague Joelle Lightbound recently removed some of the restrictions, so Canada Post has the flexibility to adjust how they deliver services. I would suggest the union is also going to need to be flexible in looking at how they can assure the quality and the safety of their workers, the quality of work and safety of their workers, but also really focused on what Canada needs right now, which is a functioning Canada Post. We have federal mediation services working with both parties, and it is my expectation that people will work hard to find a deal. People are counting on them.
Well, and people are counting on the government to act if there's where is the point where the government intervenes again?
Well, as you know, right now there is a rotating strike, and we're hoping that this next round of talks is going to be productive, and we'll have more to say after that.
We are all hoping for that, and we're looking forward to the budget next week. Thanks for this.
Thank you.
All right, gang, we'll wrap it up right there. Patty Hajdu makes me a little bit nauseous. I might need to visit the washroom right now. That guy from CBC, he wasn't too bad, really. I know they're all hacks. If you work for CBC, it's part of the DEI hiring process. You have to be a hack. That's the way it goes. Anyhow, Aaron, Kennedy, and Looney, like, share, subscribe. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. We'll catch you in the next video. Come and join one of the live shows. Like, share, subscribe, get notified. We'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching this one. Ciao for now.